Hi, thanks very much for having me this afternoon. My name is Megan Riversmore. I'm a professor in Women's and Gender Studies at Carleton. I just wanted to mention that our institute offers a major in Women's and Gender Studies. We also offer a major in Global Genders and Sexualities through the Bachelor in Global and International Studies. And we also house, so you can do a minor in Women's and Gender Studies. You can also do a minor in Sexuality Studies, in Disability Studies, and fingers crossed that in the fall of 2021, we're hoping to launch a minor in critical race studies. So our institute houses all of those different options for students. I'm delighted to introduce one of our star students, Geneva. They are a fourth-year student in Women's and Gender Studies and doing a minor in Sexuality Studies. Nice to see you, Geneva.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, first question right off the bat. Why Carleton? Why did you choose us?
Right. Good question right off the bat. My dad actually came to Carleton. And I'm not exactly sure what he did. He doesn't really talk about his schooling that much. But yeah, so he came to Carleton and he spent a lot of time in Dungeon Tower, which I find really ironic because I spend a lot of time in Dungeon Tower now too, which is where the institute is, our department. But yeah, I also have been living in Ottawa for most of my life, and I still live in Ottawa right now. So it's nice to be able to drive 20 minutes, half an hour to get to campus. That's really convenient. Plus, what I really also liked was what Carleton looked at, like what our department looks at. Because I was looking at other schools that have like women's studies and women's and gender studies, and I don't know, the way that Carleton had its classes set up, and like for example, like there was I know on the list it said it had classes in girlhood and had classes that had more to do with like state and policy, and cross-list classes that would talk about indigeneity as well, or it would talk about human rights, like Isha was talking about earlier. And I just really I liked it. Plus, like the community that I was seeing even in high school, it felt so like warm and welcoming. I don't know. It was nice to see. The campus is also really beautiful, right beside the river. Oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous.
We're missing campus right now, aren't we?
I really miss the campus and seeing the groundhogs. There are groundhogs everywhere all the time. At least see once a week.
They're probably taken over now that we're not there.
Say it again, sorry?
I said the groundhogs have probably taken over now that we're not.
Honestly, there are probably holes all over the ground.
Geneva, can you talk a bit about some of the common misconceptions about women's and gender studies? Because you talked a bit about how you like you were really attracted to this sort of the interdisciplinary nature of what we do. And I don't know if everybody listening will know about that. So I wonder if you could talk a bit, about some of the common misconceptions, and then also maybe some of the ways that the program sort of surprised you or challenged you in some way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the most common misconceptions that I see in media is that like you can't really do anything with women's and gender studies degree. It's kind of useless, and everyone just sits around and talks about the woes of women, and and then now you're in a bunch of debt, and then you work at a coffee shop. Like that's the general vibe that I get from shows and stuff, or like for example, like Supernatural. I used to watch that a lot, and then Dean one time, just one of the main characters, just threw in like, "Hey, this isn't women's and gender studies. Stop analyzing things and start shooting some demons." Like, come on, why are you attacking me like that? Or like the whole department. So yeah, I definitely can address that. Like, what we talk about is super. I mean, we're going to talk about this later in another question. But it's very, very applicable to life in so many different ways. So let me structure this in my head here. What we do is we like analyze and theorize about what's going on in our location, and if you decide to like look at like elsewhere around the world, you can do that as well. Like for example, like what you teach in like sexual justice and human rights and the America study. So like we look at how the social and the political and the legal structures can oppress or privilege certain bodies, certain people, and how to combat this and how to make activism and theorize around this and to liberate people. And it's like anyone can anyone can benefit from this. If you're going into law and you want to know who's being oppressed and who you can work towards to get into getting more, like, let's say for example, like the Black Lives Matter movement right now. I learn the tools to understand and dissect what's happening, and I can understand why people are getting angry, who's getting angry, what tactics are being used on many sides, of course. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Let's move on to something else, and let's say like Indigenous studies. There's the thing about this program is that like half of it is like electives. So I can take classes and all over the board. I can take like psychology, anthropology, sociology, obviously women's and gender studies, sexuality studies, Indigenous studies, and it counts towards it. So I can take like 10 courses in Indigenous studies if I wanted to.
Right.
And I can learn about what's happening in Canada, and like what Isha was saying about the Wet'suwet'en March and stuff. Like I went to it and I understood what was happening and understood how the government was imposing certain things and how the RCMP, like I had a class with Professor Gentile about state, gender, and sex, and how the state regulates gender and sex, but also race. But that would have been too long of a title. But we could understand how the RCMP has had a very long history of surveillance and stuff. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, you jumped ahead and answered my next question about how the program applies to life in the world. But yeah, I mean, I think what you're getting at is really important about that one of the things we do is really give students the tools to help analyze, right? Like
Absolutely.
The world that we live in, what's happening at the moment. And I think one of the real strengths of women's and gender studies is exactly what you've pointed to, that interdisciplinarity, right? So we have professors who have degrees in sociology and geography and history and political science, right? And so it's like we're getting at these questions about inequalities in the world, about oppression, about privilege from a variety of different perspectives, right? So yeah, I think that's a huge strength of what we're doing. So you just mentioned one course. Can you talk about, I know it's hard to choose, but do you have a favorite course or a favorite experience from your degree that you could tell us about?
Right. Well, that course was actually one of my favorite courses. It was every week I was learning new stuff and my mind was absolutely blown. Finding out about like what the government has done in surveillance, because it was mostly talking about surveillance. It was it was so interesting. I didn't even know. It was okay. So that class, along with decolonizing gender and sexuality, that was an Indigenous studies class actually. That one was really, really good. And I learned a lot about history and like colonization, what has happened over the past couple of 100 years, and what is still happening and what will continue to happen, unfortunately. And that's just, but what we're doing here and through Indigenous studies, through women's and gender studies, is trying to work on and strategize on what to do now. And like, I mean, there's already been a history of scholars and authors who have been doing that, and it's amazing to know that people like me and people in my situation are like the next, like in my program and other programs similar, are the next ones that are going to be like entering this arena. It's really, really cool. But I do want to emphasize that not just because I'm in women's and gender studies, that doesn't mean I have to go into academia, or like I don't have to sit with all the big wigs and start rising and everything.
So where do you hope your degree takes you? What are you, I mean, no pressure, but what are you planning to do with this degree? What are the next steps? So yeah, I mean, academia absolutely is one option, but it's not the only one. So where else might this degree take you?
Right. I actually don't know what I want to do. I have flirted with a bunch of different ideas. I know it can take me to a lot of different places. Like I've already had like 3 job opportunities. Like it's like I could be a professor. I could do a bunch of independent research. I could go into law and legislation. I could go into being a lawyer, a policymaker. I could go into the UN. I could go on like equity boards, and I could go all over the place. I really could. But I know I want to take some time and really consider my options to make sure I make the best choice. Because of course, with anything that you do, you need to take into consideration like where you're going to live. Are you going to like relocate? If you're like planning on having a family, like there's a lot of things that need to go into any decision that needs to be made. So I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, but I do know that I really have a passion for critical race theory and talking about race and racism and racialization, and state surveillance and control, and how people regulate each other socially, and decolonization. Like those are my interests.
Amazing. And I mean, all those things, all those options, it's wonderful to hear that you feel like you're coming out of this program with, all of those options open to you. And we just absolutely have students who have gone on to, many of those things that you mentioned, like law and teaching and social work, but also non-governmental organizations, policy. Yeah, all of those, are areas we've seen our students thrive. And so I'm wondering, what are some of the key skills that you've developed through this degree that you think you'll be able to take out, no matter where you end up, what some of the key skills are?
Right. So analyzing, I would say, is the biggest skills. So like if I watch a movie, I can like, for example, I don't know, something that people generally do. Watch a movie.
Absolutely.
Where I can look through it and see the injustice, and I'm like, all right, well, I can strategize and see like if this person talked to this person, or this is the thing that's bringing them down, and maybe this is the reason why this character isn't talking in the situation, because they're uncomfortable and they're afraid of this happening and stuff like that. So analyzing is a really big one. Also, I mean, the way I talk and the way I write is not exactly the same, but like, writing skills are a major part of it, because there's a lot of essay writing in this. And essay writing, of course, comes from research. Research is an important thing, and I don't think that high school really prepares people enough to really know how to research. I also really appreciate that in universities that you have so much available to you to be able to research. Like, so many resources that you can explore.
Well, that's great. This is the last one, Geneva. What is so far, I know you're not finished your degree.
Yes.
But what have you been the most proud of? What are you proudest of so far?
Right. Last year, I was awarded the Ruth Bell Centennial Scholarship, which is awarded $5,000. So I was really proud when I got that. I got it in March, and yeah, so that really helped me out, because money is not exciting. Money is not the we don't have a lot of money, so it's nice to know that your school can offer you so much money, or like organizations in affiliation with the school can offer you so much money to continue your research. I was very humbled by that.
Well, and you got that award because you're an outstanding student in our program, right?
Yeah, I did earn it. I tried really hard.
Absolutely.
I also got offered twice to be a part of a program where a student helps a university professor make a course. So I helped Dr. Katie Bush make the Introduction for Women's and Gender Studies, introductory course. And then right now, we're in the works of making a masculinity studies. So I took a masculinity in pop culture class with her. Yeah. But like now, this is the first time she'll be teaching a masculinity studies, like just masculinity studies. So we're doing that together right now. And I got offered a research position with Dr. Patricia Gentile. And so yeah, we're doing that together along with 2 master's students and 1 other undergrad.
So what's it been like for you to work closely with these various professors? I mean, one thing is taking classes, and another is these opportunities that you've had to actually, develop syllabi with one professor or research project with another. Is that something, like, does that change your experience of the program or of the department? Would you recommend that other students, follow in your footsteps in that?
Yes, absolutely. It's really cool to be able to work with a professor and see how human they are. Like, I don't know, there's like this weird, maybe not weird, but this bond that students have with the university professors versus high school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And there is like a scary element to going into university. Depending on what program you have, you might have a class with 300 people, or you might have a class with 30 people, and if you keep going up and up in your years, the class sizes get smaller and you start getting closer with your professors. So like now I can text my professor at any time of the day, which is absolutely, she wished me a happy birthday the other day and I was like, thank you, Katie, it was amazing. Basis, this is amazing. And I can ask her questions about the world and she has answers and I'm like, thank you. It's like this, like a mentorship thing that's going on here. It's preparing me for adulthood.
Well, that's so nice. And that's one of the nice things about, you move from the first year class that has, hundreds of students in it. And then as you move up, the classes get smaller. And that possibility to develop relationships over the whole degree with professors. And then, that's really nice for us too, to watch, as you move through the program and, how your thinking changes and how your writing changes. And it's such a nice part of what we do.
Even if it's a giant class like that, I remember having her in her introductory class, there was about 100 people in that one. And I still became like really close friends with her because I talked to her after class and she's a very nice and welcoming person. Sorry. I mean, I'm not going to speak for every professor. Some professors are crabby. Some high school teachers are crabby. That's just how it is. But a lot of professors are very welcoming and they're like, please come to my office hours. I'm bored anyway. Come say hello. Let's talk about the course. Let's talk about your life. It doesn't even matter. It's a very welcoming environment. Very nice.
That's great. Well, I'm out of questions, Geneva. Thank you so much. So interesting to hear your insights on our program and on your experiences in it.
Thank you for having me. It was nice to be here.